Welcome. Today, we'll explore how children naturally acquire their first language, or L1. Unlike learning in a classroom, this process unfolds without formal instruction. Instead, it's driven by everyday interactions with caregivers and the surrounding environment. Children move through universal stages, from babbling to complex grammar, as they grow. Understanding these stages is crucial for educators, especially those in TESOL, as it helps us support language learners more effectively. Let's dive into the fascinating journey of first language acquisition and see what makes it so unique and powerful. Children everywhere pass through similar stages as they learn their first language. These stages include babbling, one-word utterances, telegraphic speech, and eventually, mastery of complex grammar. This progression is not random. It's a universal pattern observed across cultures and languages. Each stage builds on the previous one, reflecting the child's growing understanding and ability to communicate. By recognizing these stages, educators and parents can better support children's language development, responding to their needs at each step. The journey begins with babbling. Around 6 months old, babies start producing repetitive sounds like baba or dida. This stage is all about experimenting with the sounds of language. Babbling is not just random noise. It's the child's way of practicing the building blocks of speech. Caregivers often respond with smiles, encouragement, or by repeating the sounds, which motivates babies to keep trying. This playful back and forth lays the foundation for future language growth. After babbling, children move to the one-word stage. Here, a single word can express a whole idea. For example, a toddler might say milk to mean "I want milk." These words are powerful tools for communication, even though they're simple. Caregivers play a key role by responding to these words, helping children connect language to meaning. This stage shows how children begin to use language purposefully, making their needs and thoughts known. Soon, children start combining words into short phrases, a stage known as telegraphic speech. These phrases, like mommy go or doggy eat, get their name because they resemble telegrams, short and to the point, often missing smaller grammatical words. Despite their simplicity, these utterances carry clear meaning. This stage marks a big leap in language development, as children begin to organize words and express more complex ideas. As children grow, their language becomes more sophisticated. They start using more complex grammar, adding plurals, possessives, verb endings, and past tense forms. This doesn't happen overnight. Children experiment with these forms, often making predictable mistakes along the way. For example, they might say foots instead of feet or goed instead of went. These errors show that children are actively figuring out the rules of language, not just copying what they hear. Caregivers are central to language development. They don't usually teach grammar directly. Instead, they engage children in meaningful conversations during daily routines, playing, eating, or reading together. When a child makes a mistake, caregivers often respond to the meaning, not the error. For example, if a child says doggy runned, a caregiver might reply, "Yes, the dog ran fast." This gentle modeling helps children learn correct forms without interrupting communication. Children don't just learn language by listening. They use all their senses, watching facial expressions, gestures, and even touch. Multimodal interaction, where communication involves more than just words, is vital for language growth. Caregivers who respond to a child's cues, whether verbal or nonverbal, create a rich environment for learning. This responsiveness helps children connect language to real-world experiences. One of the most influential studies on language development was conducted by Roger Brown in the 1960s and 1970s. Brown followed 3 children, Adam, Eve, and Sarah, over several years, recording their spontaneous speech at home. He transcribed thousands of utterances, observing how grammar gradually emerged. Brown's research showed that children develop language naturally through interaction and exposure, not through direct grammar instruction. Brown's study was unique because it focused on observing children in their natural environments. Rather than setting up experiments, he watched children interact with caregivers during everyday activities. This approach provided authentic insights into how language develops in real life. By recording spontaneous speech, Brown captured the genuine process of language growth, free from artificial teaching methods. Brown discovered that children's language follows predictable stages. Early on, children use single words to express whole ideas. As their vocabulary grows, they start combining words into short, meaningful phrases. Over time, more complex grammar appears, including plurals, possessives, and verb endings. Brown's careful documentation revealed a consistent sequence in how these features emerge, highlighting the step-by-step nature of language development. The term telegraphic speech comes from the way children's early multi-word phrases resemble telegrams. They include only the most important words, leaving out smaller grammatical elements. For example, a child might say, "Mommy go," instead of "Mommy is going." This stage is a natural part of language development and shows how children prioritize meaning over grammatical accuracy as they learn. As children's language skills grow, they begin to use grammatical morphemes, small units of meaning like plural s, possessives, progressive ing, and past tense ed. Brown identified a consistent order in which these forms appear. Children don't master them all at once. Instead, they experiment, sometimes making errors. This gradual process reflects their active engagement with language rules. A common feature of early language is overgeneralization. Children apply rules too broadly, saying things like foots instead of feet or goed instead of went. These errors aren't signs of confusion. They show that children are actively constructing and testing language rules. Over time, with more exposure and interaction, children learn the exceptions and refine their speech. Children aren't just copying what they hear. They're actively figuring out how language works, creating and testing their own rules. This process is dynamic and creative. By making and correcting errors, children gradually build a more accurate understanding of grammar. This active engagement is a key reason why language learning is so effective in early childhood. When children make mistakes, caregivers rarely correct them directly. Instead, they focus on the child's intended meaning and provide a correct model in their response. For example, if a child says, "Doggy runned," the caregiver might say, "Yes, the dog ran fast." This approach keeps communication flowing and gently guides children toward correct forms without discouraging them. The heart of language acquisition is meaningful communication. Children learn best when they are immersed in real conversations that matter to them. Whether it's asking for food, playing, or sharing stories, these interactions provide the context and motivation for language growth. The more children are engaged in meaningful talk, the faster and more naturally they acquire language. Scaffolding means providing support that matches the child's current level of development. Caregivers and teachers do this by expanding on what children say, asking questions, and introducing new words or structures when the child is ready. This approach helps children build on what they know, making language learning a step-by-step process that feels natural and achievable. Children acquire language forms when they are developmentally ready. Forcing advanced grammar too early can be frustrating and ineffective. Instead, it's important to introduce new language features in line with the child's stage of development. This principle is just as important for TESOL teachers as it is for parents, ensuring that learning is both effective and enjoyable. Language acquisition is a process, not a one-time event. Children move through stages, sometimes quickly, sometimes slowly. Errors and experimentation are a natural part of this journey. Recognizing language learning as a process helps educators and caregivers stay patient and supportive, celebrating progress at every step. For TESOL practitioners, understanding first language acquisition is invaluable. It reminds us that errors are often signs of progress, not failure. By aligning instruction with developmental stages and providing rich, meaningful interaction, teachers can help learners build language skills naturally. This approach fosters confidence and long-term success in language learning. Although Brown's research focused on first language development, many of the same processes appear in second language, L2 learning. Learners move through stages, make similar errors, and benefit from meaningful communication and interaction. By applying insights from L1 acquisition, TESOL teachers can better understand and support their students' journeys in learning a new language. Let's look closer at Brown's study participants, Adam, Eve, and Sarah. These 3 children were observed over several years as they interacted with their caregivers at home. Their spontaneous speech was recorded and analyzed, providing a rich source of data on how language develops naturally. Each child followed a similar sequence, but with individual variations in timing and style. Brown's method involved recording thousands of utterances as the children played, ate, and read with their caregivers. This approach captured the natural flow of language, showing how children use and experiment with words in real-life situations. The data revealed patterns in how grammar and vocabulary develop over time. Throughout Brown's study, caregivers played a crucial role by modeling correct language forms in their responses. Instead of correcting mistakes directly, they provided examples of proper grammar in natural conversation. This subtle guidance helped children internalize language rules while keeping communication positive and engaging. Children in Brown's study often experimented with new forms, making errors as they learned. These mistakes were not failures, but important steps in the learning process. By testing out rules and receiving feedback, children gradually refined their language skills. This experimentation is a natural and necessary part of language development. It's important to remember that errors are a sign of progress, not failure. When children say things like foots or runned, they're showing that they understand the basic rules and are trying to apply them. With time and exposure, these errors decrease as children learn the exceptions and refine their language. Rich, meaningful interaction is the engine of language growth. Children thrive when they are surrounded by conversation, stories, and responsive caregivers. This environment encourages experimentation, supports learning, and makes language acquisition a joyful process. The more opportunities children have to communicate, the stronger their language skills become. To sum up, first language acquisition is a natural, developmental process shaped by interaction, exposure, and cognitive growth. Children move through predictable stages, experiment with rules, and learn best in supportive, communicative environments. For educators and caregivers, understanding these patterns helps us scaffold learning and celebrate every step of progress. Whether in the home or the classroom, nurturing language development is one of the most rewarding journeys we can share with children.